Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to my channel. My name is Margaret Pinard. I am a historical fiction and fantasy writer. I've got a company called Taste Live Twice. Welcome to my lair this morning. I'm doing a Wednesday wrap-up, and it's mostly December reads, although one of them is January. I'm deciding to break up the monthly reads even further. There's no themes this time, but it's just going to be a recent reads. And so far, I think I have one scheduled today and one the last Wednesday this month. So we'll see how that goes in terms of an order and if that flows better. I went live a minute early because I saw some people were waiting. So I figured, why wait? Let's talk. I've got a question for folks today. Because when I advertised this wrap-up, I said 5 stars to a DNF because it ranged from high to low in December. Overall, really good reading month, not in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality. And so, the DNF really sort of told me that I'm not going to read this type of book anymore. I tried. I gave it a chance. But so for you out there, readers in the wild, what are you completely okay with not reading? And what do you wish you could read more of, but won't? Be honest with yourselves. So that's what I thought you could chew on for a little bit while I go through these book reviews. Just going to say hey to the people. RC came by to say hello. JD came by to say hola. Nice guys. Anita is here. Hello, good morning. Allison is here. Richard is here. Yay! Rachel is here. Hi, guys. Nice to see y'all. So I've got a question to chew on, as I said, scrolling down below. Feel free to enter that in. But I'm going to go ahead and dive into... Oh, I was going to say what tea I'm drinking. This is a teaser for the AuthorTube Secret Santa video, which we're all going to be releasing January 31st. So stay tuned for that. But as part of this, I got Paradise Rooibos. So if Jim comes, he'll be excited that I had a Rooibos tea. It's very good. It's got Rooibos, mallow flowers, rose petals, calendula petals, and natural and artificial tropical fruit flavors. Interesting. So it's an herbal tea that I actually really dig. So I hope my fellow tea lovers can appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to start with the 5 stars. Yep. Oh, good. Okay, we got answers already. JD says, I'm okay with not hearing anything that's crappy. More sci-fi is what me want. Sci-fi. All right. Yeah, crappy. That's not a genre, but, it's hard to know until you're diving right into the middle of it. So hard to guard against it. Says, okay with not reading satire, obtuse science fiction or fantasy, and weak writing. Good. I like that. Guilt-free. And JD says, just as many books in Spanish or more than last year. I think that's what you want this year. So yeah. Nice. Anita says, I'm completely okay with not reading most YA books. Fair, very fair. I just want to read more books in general. Nice. Rooibos for the win. Oh, drank too much Rooibos while writing my thesis, so it's broken for me. Darn. Okay. All right, so let's start with our 5-star books. So you've heard me talk about this one several times. You've heard me talk about this author before. Anyone guess? So... ta-da! I have finished the lovely Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Sorry for the lighting. It's a bit grainy today. I'm not sure why. But this is Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants. This is a nonfiction book by an Indigenous author who I have read a book of before called Gathering Moss. And I have my handy notes here. I have, let's give everyone the easy link for my standalone review for Gathering Moss, because that's a book y'all should read, especially if you live in the Northwest. tender care characterizes her writing. So when I'm reading either book, what I get from Dr. Kimmerer is a sense of being affected by the environment around her, and being very discerning in who she lets in, I guess, in terms of energy and vibes. And I think that's a good choice. But just allowing that tender care to flow back in her writing. She says her writing is one of the ways she practices activism for the earth. You could totally feel that. So the tender care is evident. And then the last bullet point I had was reframe your relation to land and water. And that has actually gone in my New Year's resolutions. In my sort of workbook of what I want to focus on, I talked about talking to plants, and not house plants, because like I kill house plants, so we don't want to do that too much, but plants that I interact with. I take a lot of pictures, but I think the next step to like familiarizing myself and getting to know more about nature is talking to it, as in, considering what I use every day, what I appreciate every day, what good it does me every day when I go on my walks and stuff. So I like that. I like that feeling. And then listening for a response. I think that'll be like a good meditative exercise. Want to read more of the cool new voices in thriller, horror, suspense. Ooh. All right. Stay tuned, but maybe not. Hello. And then I've got that up, so I'll leave that up for a second. So, 5-star read. You can read this for Nonfiction November. You can read this for Skoden or Indigenon if it comes back around in November. You can read it for any month, because any month is a good month for Indigenous Lit. So that's a high recommendation. Moving on. I've got another 5-star, The Best American Science and Nature Writing 2022. So you guys know me, I'm a backlist person, but Ayana Elizabeth Johnson, the editor, I can do this. There we go. Nope. There we go. Nope. Anyway, diagonal is hard on StreamYard. She is the editor of All We Can Save, which I also talked about and did not get the link for, but that's fine. And that was such a marvelous collection that I got this as a new release at the new price, and don't regret it at all. It was fascinating, from environmental activism stuff to medicine to physics to mineralogy. I don't think that was the word that was used, but like rocks and stuff. So many fascinating things. So what I would recommend, my 3 points here are: take it in bites, just like Braiding Sweetgrass. There is a lot packed into each essay. And so it works best, for me at least, when I read and then sort of let it sit, go read something else, and come back later, so that I have like a new mind for the new essay, if that makes sense. And then I can like take it in better and remember it better. Fascinating. That's bullet number 2. So many things that I didn't learn about, so many things that I don't think a lot of people learned about, which is different, because I didn't have much of a science education. But yeah, the writers in here have such a way of making things fascinating. And I actually noticed that there was sort of a trick, and I don't know if this was the editor, my lovely Ayana Elizabeth Johnson's doing, or just sort of a selection thing, but they tended to start with an anecdote or a personal note or like a action oriented thing, and then wind up all the information and the story and the point of the essay. They wound it up at the same, like revisiting the same initial opener. And I was like, oh, that's a good tactic. I like that. So I was noticing a writing thing in a science and nature book. So, that's always good. And then I said, clear, passionate voices. So no matter what you were talking about, whether it was slime molds, as I said, or mushrooms, or quantum enlightenment, which is the one that I have one of my stickers in, the writers were just really talented. And, as a fiction writer, you don't always think of nonfiction as being like writing crafty thing. You think of it more as focusing on the research and the structure and the, not syllabus, whatever they have to write for their query, proposal. That's what I was looking for. And I just found these really persuasive and passionate. And so I, again, really recommend for nonfiction any month, anytime. I don't know when the 2023 comes out, but I'm sure it's in process now, and recommend the series because Ayana Elizabeth Johnson did a great job, and I'm sure the next guest editor will too. JD, I want to read more from the people I care about and dispense with the ones who are too high and mighty. Yeah, I like it. I dig it. I actually have been doing a little bit of a, not a purge, that's too harsh of a word, but like I started getting in the weeds or overwhelmed when I would go to YouTube and see all these sprints in my feed. And I was like, that is a problem I can fix. If I'm not feeling like part of the group that I want to join them in the sprint and chat, then I'll just unsubscribe. Then I won't see them anymore. It is in my power. So, I give everyone a chance to sort of attract my attention for, I don't know, several months. And if I just keep seeing those things show up and like the thumbnail isn't something I want to join, or the title isn't, or whatever, then it's like, I don't need to see those. So your choices, your life, right? Jim is here. I'm okay not reading the vast majority of self-help books. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that. Fair. Jim, I've already toasted you earlier with the rooibos tea. So I explained what was in it and that I liked it. I shouted you out. I seem to be getting more fantasy on my TBRs. 3 on this month's TBR, the Poppy. The Poppy War. Finished today. I just started it yesterday. It's on my current reads. I was going to ping that at the end. Vicious by V.E. Schwab, which is funny because I just tried the archived and actually decided to sell it instead of reading it. But that's a middle grade one of hers, or YA, and Vicious is definitely not. So yeah, I like some of her books and not all apparently. And Grave Peril by Jim Butcher, and I haven't read any Jim Butcher, but otherwise we're on the same page there. It's fun. Nonfiction this month, I'm reading Stalin, The Court of the Red Tsar, Simon Sebag Montefiore, which is very readable. And The Power is Yours. I'd love to be able to watch more, but with the amount of content is batshit. Seriously. So, okay, we can file that down, concentrate here again. No, I did not. I have not mentioned the DNF because that's not even on my radar. Yeah. Okay, so that's 2 5-stars so far. I have... Let me see if the next 5-star is in the overlays. It is. So let's get this one over with. 5 stars. This is the one I just finished. It's an overlay because I listened to it on, say it with me now, Libro.fm. And who did I just see talking about Brando, Sando, and Audible? Jeremy Fee. He's an Audible person and hasn't switched over, despite my many, many calls for people to try out Libro.fm. But anyway, Brandon Sanderson is actually, this is a total side tangent. Sorry, Morgan Jerkins, hold on a second. He's doing his own release that won't be available on Audible audiobook for one of his books that was on the secret Kickstarter thing. And so Jeremy had to go make a new account. And he couldn't speed up the text, which was interesting because I can on Libro, so I don't know what he was using. But yes, I listened to, drumroll, Wandering in Strange Lands, A Daughter of the Great Migration Reclaims Her Roots by Morgan Jerkins on Libro.fm. And this was a 5-star. I listened to this on my drive back and then on the walk yesterday and sort of finished up at home because it was almost finished. It was 30 minutes left. And I characterized this as The Warmth of Other Suns, which is about the Great Migration and nonfiction research by I'm going to forget her name now. Isabel Wilkerson. Thank you. And a combination of that and Milltown. Why didn't I look these people's names up? It's a K and it's an A, and she's a French-Canadian Mainer or something. But Milltown is about one woman's family history and the town's history that she grew up in and how it evolves. And it takes into account environmental history as well as migration history between Canada and America, and like industrial history and the pollution and how that affected people. And it was so good to just like hear all these winding strands. For some people that might not be their thing, but I love having someone explain lots of different aspects of one experience, because then you get a full context, you get a full story, and you feel like you're immersed. It's not fiction, obviously, but you feel like you're exploring the whole, all the sides of the problem, maybe. So anyway, those are the two books that I see this combining, because Morgan Jerkins is a fiction writer. I knew her from writing Call Baby, which I have, but I haven't read yet. And so when I saw this, I also got it and was like, oh, I'll listen to that at some point. And I think someone recently said it was really readable. It wasn't like a totally traumatic thing that I think some of the other books that I have are, which I was not in the mood for. So I was listening to a different one. Man, I do a lot more DNFs than I realized, actually. I was listening to The Future is Analog and was like, I can't listen to this guy anymore. So I switched over to this one, and it was fantastic. She is explaining her journey to find out about her family roots, because a lot of African Americans have sort of family lore that is in place of records kept, because a lot of their experiences are harmful to have to delve through. If you're a fan of genealogy shows like Henry Louis Gates's and others, you know that there's a lot of things about slavery and history and like trauma that is hard to plow through. So she had two strands of her family, her mom and her dad's side, and said that she was setting out to explore the gaps in knowledge. And so she went to the low country of Georgia and South Carolina, talked to people there. She went to New Orleans and Louisiana and Houston to talk to people there, and Oklahoma, where she talked to indigenous folks, and then talked about her own experience or her family's experience living in Los Angeles. So there were four main cores of things that she explored. She got to know different cultures. She got to learn the history of those cultures. She got to make familial connections, which was, I don't want to spoil that, but lots of surprises and like really cool for her. So that was really neat. I think she's a very talented writer. I loved listening to how she characterized interactions and how she talked about her own trepidation and how she just like explored things and set up the tension for nonfiction. Again, nonfiction that is just so gripping. So definitely recommend. 5-star. Yes. Oh boy. Chapter 21 of the Poppy War is very intense. Okay. All right. I'm not that far yet. I don't know where I am, but I'll tell you at the end. Anita says the YouTuber Daniel Green did a video on the whole Audible thing and mentioned Libro.fm. Nice. I think I just actually clicked on that. It was on my homepage, and homepage or subs. I don't see much from him, so maybe I'm not subscribed to him. But anyway, I just put that on my watch later list, so I will be getting to that. Thank you, Anita. Books, Gers, and Purrs, good morning. I just watched something on your channel, so I can actually remember. Leslie, right? Welcome. Okay, so that's the third 5-star review. Now we're going to move into 4 stars. So let's see here. 4 stars. So, I need to take this down. There we go. This was one for the Patreon book club. Somebody popped the information for that on. This is my little bit.ly to check out the different levels of Patreon. This is the top tier at the moment. It's the Patreon book club. It's $8 a month, and we talk about books every other month. So this was our December pick. It was a last-minute substitution because someone had read all the books that I proposed already. So this is Lara Elena Donnelly, and it's first in a series. I think she has the first 2 out, and it's predicted to be a trilogy. It's called Amberlough, or at least that's how I'm pronouncing it. And tagline is "What will you sacrifice for love?" But I think it's more compelling to actually say the genre mashup, which is like glam, spy, historical, queer thriller. So that was all that was going on in this, and we all loved it. So I'm glad I finally chose a book, put it out there that no one had heard of, but that was a really big hit. So I'm glad the book club liked this. Let's see. It says, meet a smuggler, a dancer, and a spy during a decadent era just before a political coup is about to set the city on fire. So this is a fantasy. It's in another world that has lots of callbacks to our 1930s Berlin type world, but the culture is different. The technology is slightly different. The politics are slightly different, but also recalling like the fall into fascism and the takeover by state revolutionaries and everything. So really interesting. There's love intrigues and lots of humor, lots of slang. Let me revisit my notes so that I don't try to pull from nowhere. So it is a slow start, and the reason is because it's too fast. So I said slow, fast start. What we all found is that you're sort of plunged into this raging river of action and name dropping and backstory that's not really stated clearly. You're just supposed to move along with the crowd. And so it took a good amount of pages, like 100, before you started to feel like where the quakes were and where the emotions were and stuff like that. And so, you know, if you're the type of person that can roll with that, then I would definitely recommend Amberlough by Lara Elena Donnelly. I loved the slang. We had lots of like cool glam scat kind of stuff that was just fun. I started introducing it into my own language, which was just dorky, but you know, that's my brand. And I said dastardly fun. So the reason I say that is that there's a tinge or a flavor of capers and sort of unrealistic things happening with the action sequences. But if you're a fan of fantasy, you often love that, and it's just fine. I just want to, you know, call it out for anyone there who's like, oh, this is cheesy. I loved it. So I really enjoyed it, and we'll probably go on to read the next, but I am not bothered. I am completely okay, to recall our question of the day, completely okay with not finishing series. But this one I may continue with, but just at a relaxed pace. So yes, 4 stars. And that was for the book club. Actually, right now, I should have thought of this before. Right now, if you go to that link, which let me just pop it in the chat so people can click on it. I have a poll open right now, and it's public. So anyone even not in the book club can vote. I've got 2 books up for February, and I don't know which one to pick. So I'm going to do polls for the book club picks this next year. So if you want to have a say or sort of like look in to see what the club is doing, feel free. You'll hear back here on my channel about what I loved and, you know, how it went over with the book club. So that is that. Hey, it's Roz, scallydandling about the books. Good evening. Yes, hello. Let's see, it's Wednesday evening, so thanks for stopping in. I'm halfway through. I've got a 5, a 5, a 5, and a 4 so far. So we're going down the list. So you might want to rewind later if you were looking for recommendations. Allison says, loving your 5-star reads, going on my list. Let's see. Very good. Dust Bowl Orphans. All right. So Jim's got a recommendation to throw in there. Almost Good Night Here, because he's over in Georgia, which is further east than Suffolk. All right. So we're going to go to the next 4-star, which is what I read for Buddy Read. So this is Regeneration by Pat Barker. And I read this with Sandy of Miss Reads a Lot. It is on her list of 1,000 books top books to read. And so it's part of her very multi-year long project of reading all of those. But for me, it is a book that I had, I don't know where I got it. I think I've had it for a while. And it's historical fiction. Pat Barker wrote this like in 80s or 90s, early 90s. And it's about World War I. It's a trilogy. They're all finished. World War I soldier during the war who gets who gets sent back for a psych evaluation because he's protesting the war. But there's something different about him. He's not like the other ones. He's Siegfried Sassoon, who is a famous war poet that we know now. And Pat Barker takes him as a starting point, as well as a lot of other real people, and makes up this really interesting story about his time spent in this mental hospital in Scotland, of course. That was another point in its favor. And some of the people around him, how they're dealing with the war, how his struggle is different, how, different social milieus are reacting differently to the trauma and horror of the war. And then what ultimately happens. Oh, so good. So there's two people that I recognized in this that are real, and there are many more that are real I just didn't know about. So I loved reading this with Sandy. Again, I said it was a 4-star book. If you want to listen to our discussion, I'll pop that in there. It was a few weeks ago. Yeah. Roz saying Regeneration was 5-star for me, but I do love those war poets. Yeah, it's probably like 4.25. It's between. I think the only reason I don't give it a 5-star is because it's not in my normal bailiwick. It's not what I normally love. So it was intensely interesting, but it felt further away. It felt more distanced than what I usually consider as like what captured my heart, or what I would definitely read more of. But this is another one that I want to read through the series because it's a trilogy. My 3 bullet points for this were sly. That's the first one, because it's in a mental hospital. You are mainly in the point of view of the doctor who's treating Siegfried Sassoon, and Siegfried himself, and another war poet, and another inmate who is having a hard time, and a love interest of another inmate. So it's interesting how broad it ranges. That was particularly intriguing as well. But the sly part is that there are some very clever lines of dialogue that really get you thinking and are sort of multi-layered. That's the next thing, is multi-layered, that you kind of have to unwind what people are saying and the pauses and silences. One of the page turn downs that I did most often was when they called out the doctor pausing to wait for the patient to fill in the silence. And it was a really clever device that I noticed, and I really liked the writing in this. So that was, yeah. And then finally, the last one I have is just psychological, because the layers and the lens, I'm not used to thinking in Freudian analysis, but that's something that was definitely prevalent at this time, was definitely used in these hospitals, if you can believe Pat Barker's research, and taken very seriously. And so that was interesting to dip into as well. Not usually my thing. So sounds like a nice light read. Yeah. Yeah. Recommendations at the start. BookTube entertainment as it progresses into the movie territory. No, we're still good. We're still good. Yes. And that is the discussion with Sandy. I broadcast it to both our channels. So this is the one on my channel, just because I want people to watch my channel. Shameless shill. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're rounding up here. I've got 2 more. One is an overlay, so let me push that one up. It's an overlay because I read this one as an ebook. So I got my audio in and I got my ebook in this month. This is A Bond of Thread, which is, again, part of a fantasy series, by Allegra, Pescatore, and J.P. Burnison. And Anita is one who has also read this and loved it. I liked it. It was a good story. There was a lot of tension and conflict and action. I felt like it dragged a little bit in the middle when they were like constantly doing the same battle thing and preparing. So there was like a length and a pacing issue for me. But it was nice to ground into the world. It's a fantasy world where there's like different realms that are called natural things, like, I don't know, moss and vine and whatnot. And there's rulers of each of these realms. And there's one person who's supposed to rule all of the realms, but they haven't had one for a long time. And you have your two main characters. It's definitely a fantasy romance. So there's no big surprise. Like, they're attracted to each other and they start out as enemies. So if you like that, this is a book for you. There's some banter, there's some angst, but mainly we're looking at the woman-coded fae and like where she's from. She doesn't have a memory of her childhood. She doesn't know why she's a fae who should have magic but doesn't. And so you kind of gradually get to know, based on lore, that she's important to the world, of course. And the guy over here with the wings is someone who's destined to be her guardian, her love interest, basically. And there's some lore around that. And he's really hot-headed. And there are some interesting, unique things, but it's very, like, keeps to the formula. So if you like that, it's fun, it's funny. I would recommend it. I think I gave it 3.5 stars because of like the pacing issues and some of the predictable stuff. But yeah, very good fantasy, and yeah, there's more books to come after it. So, you know, if you're into diving in. Okay. Anita says the Mountain Fell series is actually by a bunch of different authors. These two will be writing more, but other authors will be involved. Interesting. Okay, so I figured if it was two, they'd be working together through the series, but that's a totally different arrangement. Nice. Yes, and Roz is just weighing in on Regeneration. The social milieu is one of the most telling differences of treatment. Working class soldiers got very different treatment from the officers. Yeah. Yes. So again, that's for Regeneration, and we did more of a deep dive during our buddy read. So that's A Bond of Thread, solid fantasy romance. And what do we have left? My DNF. So if Richard is still here, he will know I did not spoil the DNF. I was looking forward to it, sort of with a little bit of like fear, because this is going to be my first horror novel. It's called The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Feted, loved on BookTube, loved by horror readers. Stephen Graham Jones, I mean, idolized by the Indigenous lit and horror community. Really interesting writing. I got 124 pages in, which is like almost half, I guess. And it was just too gory. So squeamish, queasy stomach, didn't need to continue. So the good things about this that might make it for you, it's very voicey. And if you don't know what that means, what I mean by that is that you feel like you're hearing the words off the page, right? It's very distinctive. You have to learn it a little bit because people have their own rhythms and their own coded words that maybe you don't know the meaning of. And you have to sort of flow with it until it makes sense. So kind of like Amberlough. But this one actually starts in a different POV and then goes to a second and then goes to a third. And then the third is the one that it stays with for a long time. So that was really interesting, and I thought it was very well done. The next one was persuasive. So why did I say persuasive? So because it's a horror, what you're being pulled into with this very persuasive voice is sort of a descent into madness, right? I don't want to spoil. You don't know which POV I'm talking about, I guess. But yeah, so gory is the last one. And the horror part is that it feels like you're being pulled into justifying murder and dismemberment and all this kind of stuff. And I couldn't do that. But what leaf blowers. What I wanted to see was the physical horror stuff being reflective of a larger question, or something that I could sort of identify to distance myself from the blood and gore and stuff. But I couldn't last enough to connect those dots. So other people will have to tell me if that eventually like zooms back out and makes sense. But for me, the middle of the book is ending up someone questioning his own trauma and acting it out on others. And that's where I feel like it's going. And I just didn't want to be in the head of someone who is freaking out and killing people. So yeah, unfortunately it's a DNF, and I'll be sending it back for someone else to enjoy. Because that's not me. So, but yeah. So I will keep trying Indigenous lit, obviously, but the horror is my line drawn. Okay, Leslie, you have to tell me like what. I think you're talking about Only Good Indians. You'll have to tell me what made it good. Let me know in the comments. That's one of the new horror I want to read. Still do. Okay, well, I'll give it to Allison, and she can tell me if she makes it through, because yeah, I don't know. Because of RC's short story, I thought I could like give it a try and put a toe into the pool, but the cold. It's too cold. I can't do it. Anita will laugh at me. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the current reads. The current reads, because this is more flexible and of a wrap up, and we're not doing just the month. So I started, as I told Jim, The Poppy War by F Kuang, and I'm already like a good chunk into it. It's really good. I am now going to be looking for a deal on Babbel if I can find it. But this is really cool. So it's reminding me a lot of the Priory of the Orange Tree, in that there is a girl student who's going to an academy and having a rough time. But she's not like other girls. And right now she's just found a mentor, and they've just had a rupture, and that's where I am. So I like the world. It's a fantasy world that kind of reminds me of China and Korea, sort of mixed. There's an island nation who has been at war with them, but is currently not. And there's like a religion that has been eradicated, but it's sort of still hanging around in vestiges. And there's lots of dropped hints that like another war is coming. And yeah, very severe at the academy, military academy. So I'm enjoying it. I don't know about chapter 21 and whether that's going to like make me want to put it down, as Jim was saying. Okay. All right. So Jim is weighing in. It has some difficult scenes because it was loosely inspired by the Sino-Japanese War. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm loving it so far. The writing and the action and the character development are great. So current read's looking good. The other current read that's looking really good is another fantasy, but more anchored in our world. It's called Thistlefoot by GennaRose Nethercott. And it's this really fun cover. So this is like a Jewish folklore-based modern fiction. So these two siblings who are estranged, one is up in Maine doing carpenter work and trying to live a normal life, and one is traveling the road being a shifty pickpocketer and busker, because he has like a special ability, like a magic act ability. And they're called back to inherit this house that is sent over from Ukraine. That is a house on chicken legs, and that's where the magic comes in. So I heard about this from A Mighty Blaze. GennaRose was a lovely guest on The Thoughtful Bro, and I loved her personality. So I think I got this at the Barnes & Noble half-off sale last year, maybe. And yeah, so new book, decided to risk it. And I am a little bit in, wait, you can't see, I'm right There we go, right here. So good chunk in that one as well. And it's very entertaining. We're shifting between two POVs and the house interjects intermittently, which is super fun. It's just one of those where there's humor and there's a dark side because there's a villain who's chasing the house and trying to infect the world with fear, which is super timely. So again, like Amberlough is about fascist takeover in history. Thistlefoot so far is kind of about someone spreading xenophobia and people fighting against that. Although I've only just met the people fighting against it and I don't know who they are or why they're fighting it. But very cool. Love the characters, love the humor, love the folklore interwoven from like way back in Ukraine and like the fun house. So yay for current reads. We're starting off really great. I ended Braiding Sweetgrass as a 5-star read and started the year on Wandering in Strange Lands, which is a 5-star read. So we are doing really, really well. Lauren, hi, smashing the like button, much appreciated. If you haven't liked the stream yet, feel free to like the video, helps with the analytics. Allison says, school, you read the enemies to lovers fantasy, I'll read the squidgy horror. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. There's some overlap with these. We'll see what we can work out here. Jim says Poppy War has some difficult scenes, right? I did that one. Rin is a great character. Yes, I'm loving her as well. F Kuang was only 21 when she wrote it. Well, that's why it's an academia fantasy. That makes sense. Leslie says it's a nod to different horror style. Third is like haunted house. 2/3 is slasher, which is also written structurally like I think Shining. And the third part is monster. Is that in chronological order? So I just never got past the slasher part? That could be very much true. Interesting. So here's someone who knows her horror and is like breaking it down for me. Much appreciated. Poppy War was a 5-star read. Are you going to read the rest of the series, Jim? That's the next part. But I totally respect if you can't handle the gore. Yeah. For me, and I think Richard was here when I was reading during the sprint, and I was like, nope, can't do it, gonna put it down. It was the tucking the hair back through the skull and then wrenching the tooth out after someone had been murdered that I was like, no. That was my no. Oh, hi, Justiva. Yay. Lovely to see your face. I'm lurking, having never read any of these things. Well, I'm the queen of books you've never heard of. So, yes. Glad to have you with us. Okay. Yeah, so I wonder if I could do monster. Probably not. I'm guessing not, but yeah. Oh, I figured that was the scene. Is that the worst? Did I crumble at the worst? Oh my god. Jim says I will only be reading the rest of the series if I find it cheaply. Yeah, in a foreign country, it's got to be hard to find the English lit. Yep. Poppy War was just $1.99 on ebook, I'm guessing then. Cool deal. That was a good deal. Yeah. So that is my Wednesday wrap up for about the last 3 weeks-ish. Some very exciting, very good reads to recommend, and a couple current reads that I'm very excited about, which I hope don't turn into slasher monster. I don't think they will, but yeah, very excited. What do I have coming up for the rest of January? It's sort of a readathon rest month, and I'll be getting ready for Black AuthorTuber readathon. I'm going to be asking a few people to weigh in at the end of January to sort of get us excited to launch into that. So stay tuned for that. What else? More stuff on the AWC when Shannon comes back. And, books to take into the apocalypse. That is, under wraps / on the cooker, getting ready. So hopefully that'll be a fun video. And yeah. Yellow Face sounds intriguing. F Kuang's next book. Oh, is it the next in that series or is it after Babel? I haven't heard of that one, so maybe it's like a completely new book. Souris. You know, it's funny. The word for souris, the word for mouse in French is souris, but that's also like the command form of smile. So there you go. Made me smile. Eva says, oh, we still haven't met, FYI. Hannibal, the movie, the brain dinner scene was more than I wanted to handle. I don't really read horror. Fair, especially here on this channel. And then Jim says, After Babel, May 2023 release. Oh, okay. Nice. What else have I forgotten to tell you guys? Tell me. What have you forgotten to tell me? Oh, what's next? I usually say what's next. So coming up, I'm going to keep going with the first Friday productivity sprints, final Friday, first Friday. And so that means that 2 days from now, Friday morning, I'll be taking 2 hours to gather my thoughts, give myself a list, and maybe write or otherwise like get tasks done. So if you're looking for a fun thing and aren't overwhelmed by all the sprints in your feed, as I was talking about with JD, feel free to join for that on Friday morning. I think that is it. Just put the link in the chat there. And okay, what else? Did I miss anything, guys? I'm just very excited about the reading. And you will hear you'll hear the report out from Storygraph statistics as well. So Apocalypse List, Storygraph stats for 2022, Black Author Tuber Readathon info for February, and lots of reading. So that's what I hope to put out in January, as well as some writing projects. So that'll be the focus. That is it for me today. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for anyone watching the replay. Be sure to like, subscribe if you're interested in books like these and you want to hear more from the Queen of Books You've Never Heard of. I hope you have a lovely day. Stay safe. Take care of yourself. Read some good nonfiction. All right? I will see you all again soon.